Hello and welcome to edumate.tv. I'm Chetan Sharma. We learn to live and live to learn in what has turned out to be an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented pandemic, with history being written across the geography of Mother Earth, and a minor virus has created a major catastrophe, making each and every one of us rewind, rethink, reboot, restructure, re-strategize before we rebuild. Rebuild a new normal, rebuild a new future. In the world of education, they say, the only thing constant is change. In a pandemic, they say, the only thing certain is uncertainty. It's important to understand that all progress must come from change, but it's equally important to understand that all change does not lead to progress. And that's what makes the situation rather unique in its set of challenges, solutions, and most importantly, opportunities. If there's one trait that's required to address each of these three facets, it's got to be the trait of wisdom. Wisdom emanating from past experience and knowledge, and wisdom infusing flexibility to be able to embrace and evolve with the new situation around us. And that's why we have our very wise chancellor. Today we have a very special guest joining us from the Vijay Bhoomi University in Maharashtra, Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay. Thank you for joining us, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you.
Well, first things first, it's been obviously a challenging 2020. Do you see 2021 radically different, and why?
I think, first of all, thank you for saying that it was a challenging 2020. The way we looked at 2020 was a very, very important inflection point in education, as it also provided a lot of opportunity for those who could adapt and those who could innovate. We could navigate 2020 in a manner where there are few very important things which happened in terms of our faculty and students and staff very quickly adopting to the online and the hybrid mode of education. That is one. Two, we could come up with systems and processes which could not only continue with our existing calendar, but at the same time, we could actually do things which probably were not thought of or heard of earlier. We were the first one to actually do an online convocation of our School of Business, which is Jagdish School of Business, where none other than the Honorable Speaker of Lok Sabha, Om Birla, was present. Two of our programs of Jagdish School of Management, the Masters in Marketing, made its debut in the Masters in Marketing, the first one from India, and Masters in Finance rankings, we got into the 100 plus band, which was remarkable. And our calendars continued as per schedule. There were no disruptions. And so as far as 2021 is concerned, I think we have created that base from which we can now move forward towards making an impact, not just in the national level, but also at the global level.
That's really the core of leadership. While others try to look at situations, as solutions, you're looking at even one step ahead as an opportunity. That's why I started by saying the challenges which lead to solutions, but most importantly, create opportunities. And you seem to be in the third category. Reason why University Vijay represents victory. So talk us through the university. What's the vision and the mission in this victory?
I would give you a little bit of the genesis of this university, and that has to be understood from the fact that who are the founders and how it happened. Now, if we look at the founder of this university, it's founded by late Vijay B. Parode, who was the founder of Dalal Street Investment Journal. He was a self-made individual in the sense that he was from a very humble background, and it was education which allowed him to, transform himself from a small village to a successful, bureaucrat in the central government. He believed that since education is what can change the future of this country, he thought of coming up with a university in a place called Karjat near Mumbai. It's very scenic, very serene, surrounded 360-degree by the hills. And he was thinking that this university will be a very different kind of an institution. It was around 2018 that I joined the IFIM institutions from IMT Ghaziabad, where I was the director. And post joining IFIM, I and the then chairman, who is today the president of Vijay Bhoomi University, Sanjay Parode, who himself is also an entrepreneur and a BITS Pilani alumnus, we were making a visit to various universities in Europe and US. And we visited a number of top institutions in both the continents. In one of the places, I think that was at Stanford, I made a comment to our president Sanjay Parode that when I turned 70, I would like to join for an undergraduate program in a university similar to that, because I would like to discover, explore, and do things which our university system didn't allow us to do in terms. And he said, why not make the university that we plan, a university that you would like to study in, okay? And that's how the genesis of this university happened. That a university which should facilitate the process of discovery, allow experimentation, exploration, who should actually create professionals who have got a liberal, bent of mind. Professionals who may be tough outside, but compassionate inside, who are holistic, who are socially responsible, and who can make an impact in the local community, in the nation, and also as a global citizen. That was the starting point for the university. And hence the genesis or the start of a liberal professional framework of education. And that's how we became the first university in India which is both liberal and professional, combining the two.
Quite fascinating the way you narrated the situations which led up to your being what you title as the first liberal university of this country. We've heard of liberal arts, liberal education. I think this is more to do with a liberal mindset more than anything else. So thank you for that. Sounds very, very interesting. That having been said, Dr. Atish, this really sounds fascinating. It sounds quite remarkable to any entrepreneur like myself as well. But that having been said, if you really rewind to the primary years of schooling, it's far more closeted. Now, the NEP and its policy notwithstanding, for one to transform from a closeted primary education with suddenness into a liberal, mindset in higher education is easier said than done, wouldn't you feel?
If you ask me, I would have a different perspective to this, because I feel that our school education system is very, very good. Okay. And that is where, a lot of these essential skills that we talk about are built in. Okay. We have a very strong system of Kendriya Vidyalayas all around the country. Okay. The finance minister announced formation of additional 100 Sainik schools. Okay. And strengthening of around 15,000 odd schools in sync with the national education policy. So I think the overall intention of the leadership of the nation is also towards that direction. So the school education there is a framework already existing which allows liberal thinking. So I think we are at the right place at the right time. Okay, it is not that we are too ahead of time. Okay, we are probably doing the right thing. And the national education policy also talked about, multiple disciplines. So there will be no single discipline institutions. There will be multiple multidisciplinary institutions. Now, what has traditionally happened is that in our mind, we always equated a Wordsworth and an Einstein differently, particularly in India. The way we look at it, for us, a Wordsworth and an Einstein is of equal value. So if you take a 1 credit course in our university in data science, an area like artificial intelligence, a 1 credit course in music in our school of music, and a 1 credit course in the school of business, all have got similar weightage, similar pricing, and there is no differentiation. Okay, which means today, the way we think of it, that okay, somebody doing an engineering is different from somebody doing an arts. I think that has to change. Very important. Now, why can't a lawyer at the same time study music? There should not be any conflict. I think those combinations are going to be the key thing as we navigate an uncertain future.
In a way, it sounds like the true democracy of education, Dr. Atish. And I salute you for recognizing that, not just recognizing that, responding to the situation, and of course, finding relevance in it. I think that's really, really critical. So in that context, tell us who typically would be a student of the Vijay University. Do you have a particular kind of a profile of a student that you're targeting?
Let us understand one thing. Education is about learning. And learning is one pleasure which human beings derive till the last day of their life. Okay, you will see the oldest individual still interested in the news and the newspaper and a new movie being released. So an individual who wants to enjoy the joy of learning, wants to explore, experiment, and wants to look at learning as something which can develop oneself into a holistic professional who is also socially responsible, and somebody who looks at education as an enabler and not just something for a very transactional short-term value, is an ideal student for us.
Wonderful. And of course, education is something everybody wants. However, everybody wants that education at a particular price line. They want it at a level of affordability. So would you say that the courses that you conduct are affordable from the student's point of view, and why?
See, if you look at it today, simple coaching for engineering or medical institution for which a large group of people appear is at a price point which may be higher than what we charge per annum from our students. Okay. So our pricing is very simple. Our pricing is 8,000 rupees per credit for non-residents of Maharashtra. So which means the non-domicile of Maharashtra, it is 8,000 per credit. And for those who are Maharashtra domicile, it is even 20% less than that. Okay. Which makes it, allows the participant to choose the type of courses, curate one's own learning path, and it is, to me, is pretty affordable if you look at it from the perspective of the participants. And we have a policy where no deserving student is deprived of education because of want of fund. So there are a lot of funding which is available in terms of educational loans. And number two, we have got very good attractive scholarships. So overall, if you look at it, the kind of education that we impart, our price points and the tuition fees are very, very affordable and is almost comparable to what a student normally pays even for school education in some of the good schools. So I don't think that there is any issue of affordability, considering that there is a quality education. And if you compare that in terms of what a similar education cost abroad, this is only a fraction. And the interesting part is that we have got our partnerships with some of the top schools in Australia, US, and Europe, like a State University of New York or ESCP Europe or the University of Wollongong. So even that also reduces the overall cost of education. So I don't think affordability is a challenge as far as Vijay Bhoomi University is concerned.
Indeed, very, very comforting. Now, I'm going to come back to the liberal education part, because that is your key, right? That's your USP. I first talked about one challenge coming from the input, which means your the primary education, which may or may not be entirely in sync, which will make your job more difficult in the transformation. Now, there's also a throughput and an output to this, because it sounds absolutely remarkable that the fact that you want to create open, liberal, exploratory minds. But in an environment where half of this country doesn't get themselves a job, given the situation of unemployment, right? How relevant is this from corporate India's point of view? I mean, do they appreciate this in its entirety? And are you able to actually ensure some kind of a placement to those students at the places which will appreciate this method of education?
See, let us understand one thing. We essentially are from a business school background, okay? And it is from the business school that we have now started this university. And even our business school is going to have a campus at Vijay Bhoomi University, okay? Now, as we all know that the business schools in India are the ones who understands recruiter needs and the placements better than probably most other disciplines, okay? And that is where the graduates are most sought after. If you look at this year's our MBA placements, in spite of the corona, we completed our placements in the third week of December with an average package of more than 1 million plus INR. So we do understand what the recruiters' needs are and how the entire placement process happens. Okay. Now, what is important today, what the corporates are looking for are not just skills which are relevant in the short run, but more importantly, those graduates who learn how to learn, learners who are lifelong learners. A liberal professional framework of education actually widens the horizon and the view of a graduate. And that allows, as we said earlier, orientation towards exploration, experimentation, which automatically leads to learning. Okay. And that is the skill which is most relevant for recruiters. Ability to be a lifelong learner. Ability to take care of one's well-being. Then whole issue of dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty. Being a holistic, socially responsible professional. Those were the exact need which the recruiters of the corporate India had. And hence a combination of liberal education with a professional degree like business, law, data science, or design will create the right kind of, professionals and graduates, I think, which the corporates are today looking at, and those who will remain relevant not just in the short run, but also in the long run. I think our placement record already speaks for ourselves for as far as our business school is concerned. And since the anchor school, so to say, are the professional schools like the School of Law, School of Data Science, School of Business, School of Design, even the School of Music, which are into performing arts. I think that's something which ensures employability and of our graduates and acceptance of our graduates by the recruiters.
So heartening to hear, Atish Chattopadhyay, particularly for us at edumate.tv, because one of our mantras is educate to employ. So I'm so relieved, in fact, to hear what you did say. We are almost at closing time on this very interesting conversation. I'd like to end by, taking a spot of advice for our viewers from you. You mentioned about lifelong learning. And I'd like you to encapsulate your learnings as you guide 4 very critical eco-sections of our education society. A, the parent. B, the student. C, the teacher. And D, your fellow vice chancellor. What would be your advice to each of these people?
As far as parents is concerned, the first, I would say, suggestion is to allow the kids to be what they want to be. That's important. We should not determine as parents the choice of our sons and daughters. Today, universities like us offers the opportunity to combine law with music. So let the kids be what they want to be and let us leave them the way they are. That's the first advice to the parents. As far as the students are concerned, my suggestion or advice is that today the world provides enough opportunities, and it is about the process of self-discovery. Every individual profession is important. Every individual has an innate intelligence, and one may be dominant. Okay, so the point is that you leverage your strength and discover what you are good at. And if you do what you are good at, and that becomes your profession, you will enjoy what you do. And if you enjoy what you do, you will be successful and happy in what you do. And I think universities of today allows our young generation to experience the joy of learning. So please enjoy the joy of learning. Learning is to be enjoyed. It is not about being, under pressure. As far as teachers are concerned, I think the biggest advice is not to teach. Okay, let learning be a process of discovery, and let us be more like mentors and guide by the side rather than being a sage on the stage. I think we as teachers need to reorient ourselves from teachers to mentors, and from teachers to learners, because reverse mentoring is going to be far more important than what we see today. And we should have that humility to understand that our students may be better equipped to even make us learn new things. I think that's the important part. So this is my suggestion to the teachers. As an institutional leader, I would say that, leadership today is about distributed leadership. There is no one leader, okay, which means that each individual in the institution is a leader, and leadership needs to be distributed. And number 2, the most important thing is the values that we stand for. What are our values? I think values of non-self-centeredness, values of contribution, and values of empathy and humility always will remain as universal values. And what we need to exhibit as institution leaders is to uphold those values. And if there's a choice between what benefits the individual vis-a-vis what is good for the institution should come first. I think that should be the essence of leadership. And as academic leaders, we need to probably set those benchmarks in terms of values of humility, empathy, contribution, and non-self-centeredness. That's what I would like to say.
Truly inspirational, sir. Truly inspirational. Thank you so much for talking to us, Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay. You know, I often end off our programs by trying to summarize the conversation through letters. And for you, because it becomes easy to take away for our viewers. So for you, I can think of one letter, and that's L. Let me explain that. The first L that I think of is your terminology and your understanding of life and lifelong learning. The second L, you spoke about leadership. Leadership in the sense, the way you recognize it to be an exercise of humility, empathy, participation, distribution are the words you used, and institution first. So putting, the institution before yourself as a leader, these are true remarkable qualities, of leadership itself. The third L is just a simple three-letter word, let. Allow. The conversation which you've indulged in tells me that you are a person who wants to allow his student to prosper. He wants to allow his teacher to prosper with the student. He wants to allow the university itself to prosper, to let the country prosper. So there is a sense of allowing rather than controlling. I think that's such a beautiful philosophy. Then the other L is long-term. I gauge from most of the way you have not just conducted yourself as a brilliant academician, but the way you've structured the thought of the university into practice makes way for a sustainable long-term association, and standing. And of course, this also reflects the possibilities of future growth with magnitude. So that itself is a big takeaway. Liberty, the fact that as a leader you allow a lot. So there is a liberty and a sense of freedom which is given to those around you. And final, of course, the final L is the L you really want to hear, and that's liberal education. You announce yourself as India's first liberal education university with a lot of credibility backing that up, simply because you chose to think of those who want to make careers out of what they consider their best unique talent. So you're giving them this opportunity to explore and also, of course, to prosper through that. So I salute you for each of these L's. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay. It's a pleasure having spoken to you. You truly have been our very wise chancellor on EduMate.tv.
I would like to compliment you for coming up with those questions in a freewheeling discussion, because you never discussed. But at the same time, probably you could take out the inner feelings of an individual. I think that's remarkable. And number two, the way you summarized with your L's, and put it in a framework, which is again a very fascinating way of summarizing. I think that makes the conversation so very enriching, so very rewarding, and so very, educating for even the person who is actually responding. I think I also learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.